what happens when someone becomes so skilled at wearing masks that they forget which face is real? John Wayne Gacy understood something most people never grasp. Everyone is performing. Every handshake, every smile, every gesture of kindness, it's all theater. But while others performed unconsciously, instinctively, Gacy turned performance into architecture, deliberate, calculated, perfect. So he builds a public self that functions like a storefront, busy, helpful, familiar, involvement, visibility, the appearance of responsibility. Not because he's desperate to be loved, though attention matters, but because being seen the right way creates a kind of invisibility. If the world files you under safe, people stop looking. They stop noticing small contradictions. They stop asking questions that feel impolite. Think about a man who spends his days managing employees, attending meetings, hosting neighborhood barbecues, normal interactions, normal conversations. Yet underneath this normalcy operates a completely different physics of human value. In Gacy's mind, people weren't individuals, they were categories. Those who mattered and those who didn't. Those who deserved full humanity and those who existed as something else. The young men who drifted through Chicago in the 1970s, runaways, workers, those existing on society's margins, they occupied a special category in his mental architecture. Not quite real, not quite human, more like opportunities, blank spaces where his needs could right themselves. This wasn't hatred. Hatred implies emotional investment. This was something colder, mathematical, a simple equation where his desires plus their vulnerability equaled inevitability. The crawl space beneath his house at 8213 West Summerdale Avenue became more than a hiding place. It was a philosophical statement. Above ground, order, success, respectability. Below ground, the truth about what people really were when you stripped away the performance. When you removed the mask, the name, the story they told about themselves, what remained was just material. Gacy once said, "A clown can get away with murder." He wasn't speaking metaphorically. The paint gave him permission to be grotesque, to be excessive, to transgress boundaries while everyone laughed and applauded. As Pogo, he could grab, could touch, could violate space in ways that would be unacceptable without the costume. The makeup wasn't hiding him, it was revealing him, showing everyone exactly what he was while they clapped for more. But the clown was just one room in a vast mental house Gacy had constructed. Each room had its own rules, its own logic, its own version of him. The businessman room operated on contracts and negotiations. The political room operated on connections and favors. The basement room operated on different principles entirely. Compartmentalization this complete doesn't happen overnight. It's built through years of practice, years of learning that you can do something terrible and then simply close the door, walk upstairs, answer the phone, schedule tomorrow's meetings. The terrible thing stays in its room, sealed away, while you continue existing in all the other rooms as if nothing happened. This is how someone can strangle a young man at night and host a family barbecue the next afternoon. Not through lack of conscience, but through architecture. Physical and mental rooms that never touch, never contaminate each other. The smell from the crawl space might seep through, but smells can be explained away. Plumbing problems, moisture, dead animals. The neighbors complained, but they accepted the explanations because the alternative, the truth, was architecturally impossible. Good men who organize community events don't have bodies under their houses. The narrative doesn't allow for it. Gacy understood this protection. He weaponized respectability. Every handshake with a politician, every charity event, every successful business contract added another layer of impossibility to the truth. He wasn't hiding in shadows, he was hiding in spotlights. The brighter the public performance, the darker the private rooms could become. The pattern was always the same: invitation, hospitality, control. The young men would enter his house as guests and gradually realize they'd become something else, props in a performance they didn't audition for. But by then, the architecture had already trapped them. The rooms were soundproof, the neighbors saw nothing unusual. The world outside continued its own performance, while inside, Gacy directed scenes that made sense only to him. He called it cruising, such a casual word for hunting. But in his mind, he wasn't hunting, he was collecting. Each young man added to a terrible gallery that existed in his mental crawl space. Trophies not of conquest, but of control. Proof that his internal architecture was stronger than external reality. The rope trick, the handcuff trick, these weren't just methods, they were metaphors made physical. Watch as freedom becomes imprisonment. Watch as trust becomes trap. Watch as the performance reveals itself to be exactly what it always was, an elaborate mechanism for control. But here's where Gacy's architecture began to crack. Not from guilt. He'd sealed that room long ago. The cracks came from overflow. 26 bodies in a crawl space meant for nothing. 3 more in the river when the space ran out. The physical architecture could no longer contain the mental one. The smell got stronger. The explanations got weaker. The performance began to stutter. When police finally searched his house in December 1978, Gacy allegedly said, "The only thing they can get me for is running a funeral parlor without a license." Even then, even with the architecture collapsing, the rooms exposed, the performance ending, even then he was still directing, still controlling the narrative, still insisting that what they'd found wasn't what it appeared to be. Bodies weren't victims, they were just inventory, a business complication, a zoning violation at worst. The trial revealed something disturbing about how Gacy's mind worked. He spoke of the killings as if describing someone else's actions. John did the business. Jack did the killing. Multiple Johns existing in multiple rooms, each unaware of the others, or pretending to be unaware. The performance had gone so deep that even Gacy couldn't find the original performer. When they asked him about remorse, he seemed genuinely puzzled. Remorse for what? For being caught? For the inconvenience? The young men in the crawl space weren't people to him. They were conclusions to private arguments no one else could hear. They were solutions to problems that existed only in his architectural diagrams. Even on death row, Gacy painted clowns, of course, Disney characters, Elvis, selling them for thousands of dollars to collectors who wanted to own a piece of the performance. The paintings weren't art, they were artifacts, evidence that even in a cage, even facing execution, the performance continued, had to continue, because without it, there was nothing, just empty rooms in an empty house built on empty ground. They executed him on May 10th, 1994. His last words were reportedly, "Kiss my ass." Still performing. Still controlling the narrative, still insisting that the audience was the problem, not him. But here's the truly disturbing part. Gacy wasn't unique. He was just better at it. Better at building rooms, better at wearing masks, better at making people see what they wanted to see while doing what he needed to do. He showed us that the difference between a respected community member and a serial killer isn't as vast as we need it to be. It's just architecture. And anyone can build rooms in their mind. Dark rooms, secret rooms, rooms where different rules apply. Most people don't, but the capacity is there, waiting. All it takes is practice, permission, and the right kind of empty space to fill. Gacy proved that evil doesn't announce itself. It shakes your hand, it entertains your children, it lives next door and waves from the driveway. It hides, not in darkness, but in ordinary light, wearing a painted smile, waiting for you to look away, just long enough to close the door.